Hello and welcome to another episode of All Fired Up with Brandon Ramsey. We are here live at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, as we are every Wednesday here on the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show YouTube channel and also on Twitter at BRamseyKSR. As we dive into today's episode, please do two things for me. First, if you are watching on YouTube, please make sure you are subscribed to the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show and leave this video a like. And if you're watching via Twitter, please make sure you are following me there at BRamseyKSR. And I guess if you're watching, please do the opposite as well to make sure that you stay up to date to everything that we're doing heading into this 2025-2026 college basketball season. Have a handful of different topics to discuss here today, but also, as always, I want these live episodes to be as interactive as possible. So if you are watching, please feel free to dive into the comments and I will get back with you throughout the show. It can be about what we're talking about, or it can be just a random question, and I will do my best to hop in with an answer. But at least from a Kentucky perspective, I think the biggest story right now this week is John Wall retiring from the NBA after an excellent career, and then kind of what that means for his kind of status with Kentucky, namely being, should John Wall's jersey go into the rafters at Rupp Arena? Personally, I think that this is a very interesting conversation to be honest, because in the one and done era, it's just a little different and honestly a little bit weird to figure out how to historically memorialize these elite players, because obviously the overwhelming vast majority of their career and their success happens beyond the college ranks. So is it fair to factor that in? For example, a guy like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a very good player at Kentucky, but not somebody that we would necessarily memorialize forever in terms of his impact in Lexington. But now he's an NBA MVP and looks like he's going to be the face of the league for the next decade, or one of the faces of the league for the next decade. Like, well, should that retroactively make him a Kentucky Hall of Famer or get his jersey retired? I don't know exactly where I stand on that. I'd probably say no, at least in terms of that example. But I think the John Wall discussion is quite frankly much different, and I think that he has a much stronger case for being one of the very, very few one and done players who I would ever probably even entertain as a guy who should have their jersey hanging from the rafters at Rupp Arena. And the reason for that being the impact that he had on the program. Obviously, he was an outstanding player. He was I'm going to pull everything up here, but he was a consensus first team All-American. He was the SEC Player of the Year and went on to be the number one pick in the NBA draft that season. He averaged 16.6 points and 6.5 assists in his lone season at Kentucky. Certainly one of the most explosive, dynamic playmakers, not only that we've seen at Kentucky, but really in basketball in general. His end-to-end quickness is still legendary 15 plus years after he played at Kentucky. Now, the team got knocked out in the Elite Eight, didn't make a Final Four that year, but certainly were one of the two or three best teams in college basketball that season in 2009, 2010. But I think it beyond just what he did on the court, John Wall's impact on the program is why I think that his discussion is a little bit different, because when he decided to come with Coach Calipari to Kentucky, he very immediately changed the culture and sort of made Kentucky once again the cool program in college basketball. As soon as John Wall committed to Kentucky, and then obviously once he came and then was the most electric player in college basketball that season, everybody then wanted to play for Kentucky. And in my opinion, what John Wall did simply by coming to Kentucky, but then obviously also with being one of the best players in the sport during his one season in Lexington, that set up the next decade of dominance for Coach Calipari and Kentucky. Whether it was winning the national championship in 2012, whether it was going to the Final Four and 38-0, finishing 38-1 in 2015, or any of the other success that Kentucky had there, where they essentially dominated 2010 through 2020 as a program, so much of that, obviously, Coach Calipari overwhelmingly deserves praise for that, but a lot of it lies at the feet of John Wall as well, because again, he really changed the national perception and certainly along with Boogie Cousins and the guys that came in with him, Eric Bledsoe, etc. But it was John Wall who was the face of that team, and what he did by becoming the number one pick, and just the John Wall dance and the cool factor that he brought to the program completely changed things for Kentucky going forward. And I think that he deserves sort of some dividend credit for, again, that next decade or so of dominance under Coach Calipari. John Wall deserves some residuals from really each of those seasons, in my opinion. And I think that's why he does have a very compelling argument, despite only spending one season, despite not even making a Final Four, to have his jersey memorialized in the rafters at Kentucky. I believe Tony Delk is the last player to have his jersey retired, so it has been a while since Kentucky has had somebody, and obviously a lot of that is because of the times. You don't have these star 3 and 4 year players that are multi-time All SEC, potentially multi-time All American, top 5 or 10 on your school scoring list. Once you got past like Keith Bogans and Tayshaun Prince, who I believe are two of the people often talk about and maybe being those next guys to go into the rafters, then it's the one and done era guys, and you have to kind of decide and pick and choose what you do. And I think that's an interesting part of, do you want to set some sort of a criteria for having your jersey retired? I'm always sort of against those sort of things. I would rather just use common sense. I'm not afraid to make hard decisions. I don't want it to be like, well, if you're a first team All-American, then you make it, or if you win a national championship, then you make it. So things like that, because I just think there's too much gray area. For example, Oscar Tshiebwe was a National Player of the Year at Kentucky and played 2 seasons. Personally, I don't believe that he deserves to be in the rafters, because at the end of the day, the team had no postseason success, and that's great that he was the National Player of the Year, but I don't think that his lasting impact at Kentucky deserves having number 34 up in the rafters, whereas guys like John Wall, for everything we just talked about, I think Anthony Davis ultimately deserves to have his jersey retired at some point, because he was one of the most dominant college players probably of the decade. Obviously won a national championship at Kentucky as well. I would say he probably deserves it most, and then I would actually go to John Wall. But also you could argue, because of everything I just talked about with making it the cool program and kind of changing the vibe around Kentucky and buying into Coach Calipari, I'm not sure that Anthony Davis happens without John Wall. So maybe it is fair to say that Wall is the most deserving of all these guys. But when you think about some other more recent guys, Oscar Tshiebwe certainly being one of them, and maybe even a guy like Tyler Ulis, guys that have, Willie Cauley-Stein was a first-team All-American. Some of these guys that have maybe some of the quote-unquote criteria on paper, I'm not sure that they deserve it at the level of guys like John Wall and Anthony Davis, in my opinion. But it'd be interested, this would be a good spot for some people to chime in. And what do you think? Do you think that John Wall deserves his jersey retired? Should it be before or after any other guys in Kentucky history? And I mentioned Keith Bogans, Tayshaun Prince, Oscar Tshiebwe, Anthony Davis. What's sort of the pecking order of the guys? And then something I think about this, it's kind of more of probably like an existential question or something. But I do think that we're almost to a point where, do you have to tighten the reins on what deserves to be memorialized? Because you think about football stadiums or baseball stadiums, basketball stadiums, and you go and kind of like at each, all 4 sides of these stadiums, there's a statue of somebody. Or you go into the stadium and there's 5, 10 to 15 different jerseys retired, or there's bronze statues of different people. Well, you have to think about the fact that a lot of these teams or organizations or sports in general have been around for 100, 150 years now. What's it going to look like in another 100 years? Like, at what point? I always think about this with the naming of courts and stuff too. Like, at what point is it okay to kind of modernize it and rename it. For example, Rupp Arena. Well, Adolph Rupp hasn't been our coach in 50 years or whatever. So like at what point should you change the name? And that's the discussion for a different time. But I think that this jersey retirement, like at what point do you kind of almost unretire? Like you still memorialize it, but at what point do you like, well, no, you can wear the jersey now. It's been 120 years since that guy wore his jersey. Or at some point, it's the Colts have a Peyton Manning statue. Like, well, in 100 years, what if we need to take that down and put up a different statue? Because there's like you can't just surround everything with statues. You can't surround your stadium with jerseys. So like at what point do you almost have to kind of start fresh? And I think kind of for the first time in our history, there's enough sports history among programs that like, are we kind of starting to reach that point where we almost need to push a reset button on like, all right, naming rights, statues, jerseys, all these different things. Like we're kind of going to start again, and we still respect the past and everybody that got us here, but it's time for some fresh blood. I find that conversation to kind of be interesting, but I think it's something to think about with some of these new guys, especially in the one and done era, trying to conceptualize their status, historical status, alongside these people that obviously just had very different careers at Kentucky or really, any other program across the country. The other quick Kentucky topic to mention today is Andrija Jelavic making his way to Lexington. I know one of his KK Mega Basket teammates at Auburn was recently cleared. For everything that I've heard, I think that Jelavic is good to go in terms of NCAA standing, and like he's good to play now. Like once he got here, that was really maybe not. I don't even know how much of a hurdle it necessarily was, but I don't think that like his eligibility was ever the concern. We just had to get him here, and now he is here. It's going to be very interesting to see his role this season, because I think that he is undoubtedly one of the most talented players on this team. Remember, this is a guy that played in a top 10 or so professional league in the country. This season just ended about 6 weeks ago, averaged like 11.3 points, and a team leading 7.6 rebounds. This is a team that like 5 or 6 of them are now playing major college basketball this year in the NCAA. A lot of people have mentioned it. I do think it's true. He's essentially made in a lab to play for Coach Pope. 6'11", skilled, athletic forward. I think he's even able to step out and make threes for this team. He's always been a solid shooter in the Adriatic League. That's an NBA distance three-point line. So he's going to get to step in a foot or two this season, which I think you should be able to see then his percentage increase to more of that. Like I think it's very possible that he makes, about 1-3 a game at 35+% this season. To me, that's kind of my goal going into the year for Jelavic. And he's going to be certainly part of the reason why I've said this and had some film breakdowns on it. I think Kentucky's going to be the best rim running team in college basketball this season, because Brandon Garrison is excellent on the rim run. Jaden Quainitz is excellent on the rim run when he's healthy. Malachi Moreno has some of those, similar physical attributes that lend himself to getting out and running. Mo Diabate has shown some ability to do that as an undersized forward. And then certainly Jelavic is going to excel in that realm as well. I think that for him, it's interesting with him getting here late, that obviously he's going to have some learning curve in terms of the team structure, like literally just learning the plays and getting comfortable with the way that Jalen Lowe delivers the ball to you and different things like that. He's going to have that learning curve undoubtedly, because everybody else has been together for 8 weeks in the offseason and he didn't have that important time with his teammates. So he's going to have to ramp that up quickly once the team gets back together here soon, heading into the late October exhibition games and obviously hitting the ground running in early November. But I don't think that he's going to have this huge learning curve in terms of SEC caliber high major basketball, because again, he's been playing high caliber basketball. He's playing in the Adriatic League 6 or 7 weeks ago. Basketball is not going to be the hard part for him when he gets to Lexington. It's just going to be sort of, again, that team chemistry, that team structure, and how he fits into that. that'll be the part where there's probably some early ups and downs. It's not going to be like, well, gosh, we got to get him back into game shape or something like you were dealing with Colin Chandler last season, or what you're going to be dealing with once Jaden Quainitz is cleared and healthy and ready to go this year. That ramp up process isn't going to exist with Jelavic. He's been playing basketball and he's really, really good at it. So I don't necessarily have any concerns about by November 4th or whenever the first game is. Like, I think Andrija Jelavic is going to be more than ready to make a very big impact for this Kentucky team. A couple other topics for today's show before we get up out of here. Jizzle James, it was announced yesterday, was dismissed from the UC Bearcats team. The Cincinnati team was, in my opinion, trending up going into this season. I've always been a Coach Wes Miller fan, and I like how things are going at Cincinnati. And with Jizzle James returning, I thought they were going to have a chance to have one of the most dynamic backcourts in the Big 12 this season. He averaged 12.7 points and 3.5 assists last year as a sophomore, but ended up being dismissed from the team yesterday. I saw some comments about it online, and it sounds like there are certainly some off the court issues that have been ongoing for Jizzle James. But man, it's such a tough time to make that sort of a decision, because it's a high dollar NIL sort of figure that some of that money might already be out the door. Maybe a lot of that money might already be out the door. Maybe there's some legality to where they can try to recoup some of that, but like, those things matter, especially at programs like Cincinnati, where I don't think that they're just overflowing with NIL funds. But then obviously on the court, the dude was certainly the highest upside impact dynamic playmaker of the bunch. Now, the Bearcats are in a situation where they can survive the blow as well as possible, because they have a veteran point guard in Kirk Risa, who obviously spent last season at Kentucky before an injury. He can sort of help steady the ship early in the year, just because he's played 130 college basketball games or whatever it is at this point. You have Day Thomas, who comes back after 2 impactful seasons at Cincinnati. He's been a double-figure scorer each of his 2 years at Cincinnati, so he is back as well. You have Sean Abev, one of the more talented playmaking freshmen coming into Cincinnati. He's a kind of a bigger wing sort of guy, like probably that third guard spot, but still will be able to certainly answer some of the playmaking left behind by Jizzle James. And another incoming freshman, Kashawn Tillery, will take. He was a borderline top 50 sort of recruit. So I think with Tillery and Abev, you have 2 excellent freshmen to fill those roles, and they're going to get more minutes than certainly previously. And then with Kirk Reese and Day Thomas, you have a nice mix of veteran college basketball players and some fresh blood and some talented blood, certainly. So I still think the Bearcats are going to be good, and their backcourt is still in a good spot. But man, anytime you lose that sort of best player type of guy, it makes things really tough. So it's an unfortunate situation there in Cincinnati. Thank you, Seth. He says, Brandon Ramsey, you are the man. I tend to agree, but I'm glad you think so as well. Earlier today, I saw my good friend Tyler Markley, who runs the Projection Sports Twitter account, which if you follow me, or if you're watching All Fired Up, I'm sure you also follow at Proj Sports on Twitter. They do all the great game day graphics and all that sort of stuff. But he tweeted out the new conference tournament format for the Horizon League. And I think maybe last year it was either the Sun Belt or the A-Sun, or one of those leagues that, like, in order to win the league, if you were one of the lower seeded teams from the regular season, you were going to have to win 7 games in 7 days or 8 games in 8 days to win the tournament, because the top seed or the top 2 seeds got buys essentially like all the way to the semifinals. And these leagues do that to try to ensure that their best team, generally speaking, their regular season champion, or at least the team that finished second or third, they want to try to give them every opportunity possible to then go be the NCAA tournament representative. That's what these one bid leagues, have started to do, and it's led to some creative conference tournament brackets. Well, the Horizon League took it to a new level. Like I said, you can go to @ProSports on Twitter and you can see the graphic. I'll do my best to explain it. So you have the two lowest seeds from the regular season. They're going to play essentially a play-in game, and the winner of that plays the number one seed, the regular season champ, in a kind of a normal full slate of first round games. Then it's almost hard to actually call this bracket a bracket because it doesn't flow like a bracket. It literally is unlike anything I've ever seen. So now you take all those first round games and you have the lowest seed winner and the second lowest seed winner. They play each other in what amounts to another semifinal game or another play-in game to make the semifinals, where the highest seeded first round winner is waiting to play that team, and the second and third highest seed winners are already in the bottom half of that bracket. So it would take three wins for the top seed to win this bracket, but it's odd how you play a first round, then you almost skip a step into the semifinals with yet another play-in game there in between. Like I said, I'm probably butchering the explanation of it because it's so unique that it's hard to actually explain, and it doesn't follow the general flow of any bracket that I've ever seen. So again, just go to @ProSports. First, give them a follow. Second, scroll down a couple of tweets, and you'll see the 2026 Barbasol Horizon League Men's Basketball Championship bracket. That is certainly something to behold. Last but not least, for those of you that are frequent watchers of me here at All Fired Up, or just in general on the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show YouTube channel, a little bit different backdrop today. Have this interesting little figurine on the lamp here. I'm in Storrs, Connecticut, recording today's episode. On vacation this week, kind of bouncing around Connecticut. Yes, I know I sort of like going to random places. I also really like college towns. I had never been to Storrs. Had the opportunity to bounce around some of their facilities yesterday. Man, this place is awesome. I'm a Kentucky fan. I don't want to hype them up too much, but the college town kind of atmosphere of this place is incredible. All the buildings are super nice. Their facilities are unreal. Like even the football, which like UConn football is not exactly a big deal, I don't think. Like they have an incredible indoor facility here that just all of basketball stuff is beyond top notch. I spent a lot of time going to especially SEC college towns. The UConn bookstore is better than like all of them put together. It's absolutely incredible, the level of gear that they have. So just wanted to kind of give a shout out to Storrs, Connecticut. Incredibly nice place. I can see why people come here. Now, I'm sure it probably stinks in the winter during basketball season because, heck, it's like 90 degrees back in Indiana where I live, and it's 63 and raining right now. That's on August 20th. So I can't imagine what it's like on December 20th. But hey, basketball's played inside, so who cares? But just wanted to give a quick shout out to Storrs, Connecticut. Super nice place. Spending the night here again this evening. And then I'm heading on to New Haven for a couple of days where I'll visit Yale, University of New Haven, and then also enjoy some time on the beach there, as long as it's not 66 and raining like it is here in Storrs today. But despite being on vacation, still wanted to bring you today's episode of All Fired Up with Brandon Ramsey. Again, please make sure you are subscribed to the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show YouTube channel. While I'm here on vacation, one of the things I'm doing is working on a film breakdown of Otega Oweh. I'll probably start to get into most of the Kentucky roster, but before the season to do some Chalk Talk breakdowns on the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show YouTube channel. So please make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss that when that drops, hopefully in the next few days. But we'll see. Sometimes I get a lot of work done on vacation. Sometimes there's other things that are more fun to do, and I just kind of end up letting some of the work take a back seat. So we'll just kind of see how the next few days go. But thank you all for watching today's episode of All Fired Up. Again, please make sure you are subscribed to the Brandon Ramsey College Basketball Show YouTube channel. Leave the video a like if you have not done so already. Also, make sure you're following me on TikTok and Twitter @BRamseyKSR. Hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday, and thank you for listening.